Washington, this is the Ingraham Angle. We start with breaking news tonight. A federal judge in California has permanently blocked President Trump's executive order defunding sanctuary cities. The judge, you may remember him, William Orrick III, is an Obama appointee. We're going to have more on this story throughout the hour. And remember, he's the same judge who blocked the release of those Planned Parenthood videos. He also gave, I think, $200,000 to President Obama's campaign in the day. But there you have it. We'll get to the other stories as the night goes on and more analysis of that. But first, our top story tonight. A Border Patrol agent is dead and another suffered traumatic head injuries after a vicious attack that took place near the border in West Texas over the weekend. According to the Border Patrol Union's president, 36-year-old Rogelio Martinez and another agent were likely ambushed by illegal immigrants who beat them with rocks. It's just another heartbreaking story from the national emergency that is the U.S.-Mexican border. And President Trump has long understood and explained to Americans the threat we face at the border.
I said to him, so I think we need the wall. How important is the wall? To the Border Patrol people. They said, Mr. Trump, it's absolutely vital.
A Trump administration will also secure and defend the borders of the United States. And yes, we will build a great wall.
We are building a wall on the southern border, which is absolutely necessary.
We talk about the wall. We're going to have the wall. It's part of what we're doing. We need it. That's rough territory. That's where the drugs are coming in.
Now let's compare that to how the Obama administration viewed the issue.
Over the past 6 years, illegal border crossings have been cut by more than half.
We are cooperating on a variety of matters that has enhanced border security for both our countries.
The numbers have been driven to 40-year lows. If you just look at things like apprehensions. So we know we're achieving success there.
Oh, yeah, lots of success at the border. No human trafficking, no drug trafficking, no tunnels under the border. Janet Napolitan. Oh, yeah, no problem whatsoever. It's amazing. For reaction from San Diego, let's bring in Robert Heyer. He's a cousin of Brian Terry, who was another border agent killed, and the chairman of the Brian Terry Foundation. And of course, remember, Mr. Terry was that Border Patrol agent killed in the line of duty back in 2010 in the infamous Fast and Furious scandal. Robert and the foundation have been assisting the family of the slain border agent during this tough time, and we're delighted he's with us. This is just another sickening example of the violence at the border, and people think it's just at the border itself. But as we know, these cartels and other thugs and criminals are operating within 18 miles inside the United States with assault weapons. In this case, presumably, they pelted the victim with rocks and other things. Your reaction?
That's right, Laura. You know, it's a violent environment, very kinetic, just as we saw with Brian Terry. Those armed rip crews were professional criminals that came and went back across the border time and time again to do one thing, and that was create violence on the American side of the border. In this case, we believe that Border Patrol agent Rogelio Martinez was ambushed by individuals. He was then violently beaten, and thank God his partner survived, who was also gravely, badly injured. But it's a very, very violent environment on the border, and I think Americans have had enough. They elected a president to secure the border, and look, we exist to do one thing, and that is to speak out on issues that affect the safety and well-being of Border Patrol agents. This was the 39th Border Patrol agent killed in the line of duty since 2003. enough is enough. We have to secure the borders.
I want to know exactly what these animals did to Agent Martinez. I don't want it whitewashed. I want to know exactly what they did to him. And I want to know who these people are. They better be apprehended. And if they're coming across the Mexican border, maybe they're Central Americans, we don't know. But all I know is President Trump was ridiculed and laughed at when he was said, build the wall. They're pouring into this country with criminals and thugs and drugs and guns and all sorts of human trafficking going on. It's dangerous for the migrants who are crossing the border who do want a better life, and our heart goes out to them. It's dangerous for them, and unfortunately for American citizens, it's dangerous for us. It's not just the people of Texas or the Border Patrol. Border Patrol's on the front line. But these people end up in Northern Virginia. They end up in Minneapolis. They end up in Boston, Hartford, L.A., Oakland, and everywhere in between. This is what a failed government system does to the people of its own country. This is another wake-up call, and I know President Trump watches this show, and this better be the final straw for these members of Congress. Build this wall. Get this done.
Well, I think you're exactly right. Look, Americans are gravely concerned. I think the wake-up call was when Brian Terry was killed almost 7 years ago next month.
Well, apparently not. Apparently not. If it was a wake-up call, we would have Congress not going home for, long recesses, would have Congress who are actually in town saying we're going to allocate real money to this border, we're going to hire more agents, we're not going to have drones flying over and reporting back to headquarters. We're going to have people on the ground, they're going to be turned right back at the border. And if you protest the Border Patrol agents, we're going to arrest you too, because you're probably violating the law, because you're interfering with the actions of a law enforcement officer. I'm sorry. His family deserves justice here, just like you helped Brian Terry's family get their own justice. And you can close it out. I'm just so infuriated at this. This should never be happening in the United States of America.
Well, I think the American public spoke out when they elected President Trump as president. Now, Congress, maybe they still need a wake up. I can tell you, though, that when elected officials, either on the local, county, state, or federal level, speak out and fan the flames of protesters looking to protest against Border Patrol, and that is completely unacceptable. We are Americans together through bad and good times,
they don't want bad or good times. Now, Robert, you're being too charitable. The people who are protesting these agents from carrying out their duty are part of the problem. They are acting criminally in what they're doing, and that's all they are, is they're criminal. They're not protesters. They themselves are acting in a criminal fashion. So all the platitudes about we're all united, no, we're not all united. Some people want the laws violated. Other people want the rule of law. That's it. That's what's going on. Robert, I really appreciate your joining us. Thank you so much for what you're doing for these Border Patrol families. We need more people like you. And officers discovered the two injured border agents late Saturday night near Interstate 10 in West Texas, an area known for drug trafficking, and further bolstering the argument that America needs this wall. Joining us now for reaction from Tucson, Arizona, is Art Del Cueto. He's the vice president with the National Border Patrol Council, and from San Diego, Enrico Morones is the director of the founder of Border Angels. Let's go to you, Enrique. I am enraged by this, because this is precisely what happens when you do not have a secure border. We have dead Americans, we have human trafficking, we have dead migrants who try to cross, and some of them just want work or want to go see their family. I understand that, but it's not compassionate, and now we have another border agent dead. Your reaction?
Well, I want to give my condolences to the Martinez family. It was terrible what happened to him and his partner, same as Brian Terry, Roberto Rosas. I've attended the funerals of Border Patrol agents, and it's horrible when these types of situations take place. 11,000 migrants have died since Operation Gatekeeper began in 1994, where the wall was built that covers a third of the border. And Laura, as you know, that in the last 5 years, there's been a 40% drop in people crossing without papers. So less people are crossing going north. Actually, more people are going south, returning to Mexico or other parts, Mexico is no longer the largest group of people coming from that country without papers. Now it's actually people from Central America. We should have humane borders. We, border angels, have a very good relationship.
Hold on, Enrique, sorry. When you say we should have humane borders, what exactly does that mean? You say 11,000 migrants have died trying. Well, that's horrific, and that is heartbreaking. But they're breaking the law, and adults who bring young children across or send young children by themselves are acting in a highly irresponsible fashion, endangering their children's lives. That is a fact. So, that people dying should not die. They should not be dying because the U.S. should have a border that you can't cross unless you do so legally.
Right. The thing is, they can't do it legally. There's no line for them. There's 250 million undocumented people in the world. Most have no interest to come to the U.S., and they go to other countries. Last year, 6,000 people died crossing from Africa and the Middle East into Europe. A lot of it is U.S. intervention in those countries, forcing people to flee.
Okay, we're not talking about U.S. intervention. We're not talking about U.S. intervention.
You want facts? Do you want facts or do you want Fox?
We're talking, Enrique, about a country that has a sovereign right to protect her borders.
All countries have that.
You do not have a universal right to cross into someone else's border, and no person has a universal right to come in here and kill a Border Patrol agent. Art, let's go to you on this, because I am so done with Congress not doing its job here, and I don't want to take up your time. So you go ahead, sir.
Well, we're very concerned, we're very angry, we're very frustrated, and you said it best. You know, there have been a lot of migrants that have entered this country and died crossing into the United States, but the big thing is, let's remember, they died breaking our laws, and these agents that have died protecting our country and enforcing the laws. It is very, very unfortunate what happened to our fellow agent. We're heartbroken over this whole situation. We don't want to make it political, but it's hard not to. And it breaks all of our hearts. I've been talking to a lot of the people out there in that area of Texas. They're heartbroken. We're going to hear a lot of stories, I know, coming forward. We're going to wait to see what the investigation brings. However, what we have heard from the agents that were there, you have two agents that are familiar with the area, that are looking in different areas there, in an area that is well known for drug trafficking. And now we have one dead agent. We have another agent that had severe head trauma. There is no other explanation that we can think of. Is there a lot of possibilities of what could have happened? I'm not going to say there isn't. But what is most likely to have happened? You have two agents in an area that's notorious for drugs coming through the country.
Would the cartels, sorry, I didn't interrupt, Art, but would the cartels, wouldn't they take them down with automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons? I don't see cartel members from one of the most dangerous cartels throwing rocks at someone. I mean, again, we'll learn more about how he actually died, but was there gunfire? I mean, we're going to learn all of this. But my larger point here is, President Obama relaxed, and Enrique, you can chime in on this, relaxed the way that agents could treat illegal immigrants. In other words, made it more difficult for them to defend themselves. Did they not? Did he not, Art, as far as your way you can engage someone? If someone's coming at you in a car, you can't shoot at the car and all that. That changed.
It made it easier to facilitate the criminal to commit a crime, is what it did. To this day, there's still many agents out there that get attacked, assaulted, and we're not seeing enough prosecutions of these individuals. I've been on the phone all weekend since the incident happened, talking with agents all over the country, and we hear the same story. The problem is there's no consequences for these individuals. When you attack a Border Patrol agent, whether you should always have true consequences. And I'm not talking of a consequence of sending them back or deporting them and saying, well, we're going to send you back in lieu of entering the country before. No, you got to have true consequences for people that attacked our Border Patrol agents.
Yeah, the law goes both ways.
Enrique, you go ahead, close it out.
The law goes both ways. When Copian and Ramos shoot a man that's fleeing back into Mexico, they should be put in prison, as they were. when Anastasio Hernandez is beat to death
totally
by Customs and
unjust
Border
prosecution,
they should be, yeah, no. So the thing is that the law goes both ways. Nobody supports this criminal activity. The organized crime is on both sides of the border. The U.S. needs to stop the drug demand, the number one consumer of illegal drugs. So this is a worldwide issue. It's easy to
say right now, let's legalize drugs and everything will be in nirvana in the United States.
Don't agree. I don't agree with you, Laura. Again, I don't agree with you.
No, let's just get rid of the border.
And I support the majority of the people not supporting Trump and not supporting the wall.
Yeah. All right, guys. We're
Fox
out of
News.
time.
It's satirical.
We appreciate it. It's a great conversation.
I'm against the wall, as most of the country.
All right, no wall on the border, no consequences. It'll all work out well. Mexico will get the wall out of that. All right, stop talking. I have to cut your mic. Directly ahead, the New York Times' Glenn Thrush now. In the afternoon, more news coming out, and CBS's Charlie Rose in the evening. Some power players in the media world facing sexual misconduct allegations. Will it ever end, or has it already gone too far? When we come back. Thanks for staying with us. Another day, another allegation of sexual harassment. Media titans embroiled in scandal over sexual misconduct allegations. So who are the suspects today? Pick your poison. Broadcaster Charlie Rose and New York Times White House correspondent, the guy with the fedora, Glenn Thrush. Mr. Rose, he's a legendary interview. He interviewed me a couple weeks ago for Billionaire at the Barricades. He's been suspended by CBS News, PBS, and Bloomberg. We got triple after the Washington Post reported that 8 women claim Rose sexually harassed them. And as for Mr. Thrush, the Times suspended him today after the website Vox published a story in which 4 women say he made unwanted advances. Both Mr. Rose and Mr. Thrush released statements offering apologies, but both also disputed the details of the allegations. So is this just the beginning of justice for the harassers, or has this whole thing already gone too far? Now, joining us from Chicago is my friend, Jim Warren, chief media writer for the Poynter Institute, and in New York, my other friend, conservative commentator, Monica Crowley. Okay, I'll start with you, Monica. I mean, I have 2 minds of this. Number one, it's great that people are aware of bad behavior and stopping bad behavior in the workplace or anywhere else. That's always a good thing. On the other hand, it does seem like it's almost like the pylon, like one person's trying to one-up the other on, well, he put his hand near my thigh. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize it, but does this ever end? And if it does, when? Because it doesn't show any signs of letting up.
That's true, Laura. Look, I think we are in this moment right now as a society and culture because for decades this kind of horrid behavior was accepted and excused and covered up. So the moment you got the Harvey Weinstein story, the story of this incredibly famous and powerful Hollywood heavyweight reported in the New York Times, that story, and he was a particularly egregious example of this behavior. That story then opened up the floodgates. And because this kind of behavior has been excused for so long, now we have a tsunami of these stories and women who feel emboldened and empowered to speak up and tell their stories, whether it was a recent story or whether it was, say, 40, 50 years ago. They feel now emboldened and empowered to come forward with their stories. So when you ask if it's ever going to end, I don't think so. I think actually that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we're going to start to see it spread into other industries and other areas.
Jim.
Monica, when was the last time we ever agreed? I may have to destroy the tape. I totally agree with you. Look, there are different levels of inappropriate behavior, as folks at your network know very well over what's happened the last couple of years. But none of it, absolutely none of it, is inexcusable. I think there's a difference between what we are now reading about Glenn Thrush and Charlie Rose and Harvey Weinstein. But I think it's the tip of the iceberg. I think it has to do with people feeling finally empowered to come forward. I think it's ultimately as much about power as it is about gender. And it's also, interestingly, about the marketplace kind of ruling for the moment and saying, got to throw these bums out.
Well, here's an interesting factoid we just dug up from YouGov Economist poll. Over 1/3 of American young adults thinks it's always or usually sexual harassment if a man who is not a woman's romantic partner compliments her looks. And 1 in 4 young women says it's always or usually sexual harassment if he asks her out for a drink. Do you see my point here? My point is, how do you have a normal office relationship if now complimenting someone on a dress? Oh, you look great today. Like, young people actually think that's a form of sexual harassment. 1/3 or 1/4. If it's women, it's 1 in 4 women. So there's got to be a middle ground here before you can't have any conversation that's other than numbers or whatever your, whatever your business is. I mean, that's also crazy. What I'm saying is, not every woman's a saint, and not every man is a predator. And I think we got to say that.
I think you're 100% Laura, and I think right, and I think it needs to be said. Here is the problem: we're in this cultural moment now where we have this frenzy, right? So we don't know how far it's going to go. But I think we have to start the conversation now that to Jim's point, there are different classes of predators, there are different classes of victims, and we need to start having an honest conversation about that. On college campuses now for a long time, they have been talking about exactly what you're laying out, that for every move somebody might want to make on somebody else, they have to ask for permission at every single stage because the sense of appropriateness has been lost, and moreover the sense of common sense, Laura. So I think there is a danger of the pendulum swinging in the opposite direction. And again, this is not to excuse bad behavior in any form, but I think we got to have a conversation now where we talk about degrees and introduce some common sense and some rationality into the conversation.
All right, Jim, quickly, is Charlie Rose ever going to come back from this, do you think?
Maybe on channel 793 on your dial, but no, I don't think to PBS, CBS, or Bloomberg. The behavior that's outlined here, and interestingly enough, do you see who his attorney has been all these years? None other than David Boies. Now, there's an interesting story. There's a common link between
the David
Charlie
Boies
Rose
from
and
Uranium One. I mean, I always get the 2000 recount.
And Harvey Weinstein.
Or Weinstein.
I would just say to you guys, I would just say to Monica and Laura, I have no sense of shock and awe here. We've all known about this sort of behavior. I just realized at Amherst College in the early 1970s, we did a story that was, we considered a blockbuster on the college paper called Sleazing. It was all about the disgusting behavior of men toward women in the area.
We hope people are learning, but I'll never think of a terry cloth robe quite the same after both the Rose and the Weinstein. Never. I can't even look at the hotel robes any longer. Guys, thank you. It's great to see both of you. And new sexual misconduct allegations against Democrat Al Franken. I'm telling you, it never ends. So should he resign? We're going to have a debate. 2 Democrats debating when we come back.
Pack for any occasion with Joseph A. Banks Black Friday doorbusters starting Wednesday. All sports shirts 3 for $99. All Traveler Merino sweaters.
Democrat Senator Al Franken was front page news last week for all the wrong reasons after a California radio host charged him with making unwanted sexual advances toward her and shared photographic evidence to back it up. Well, it seems Mr. Franken's problems are just getting started after a second woman has come forward with a claim of her own. 33-year-old Lindsay Menz tweeted out, quote, "In August 2010, Al Franken grabbed me while taking a photo together at the Minnesota State Fair. I felt violated and embarrassed." The year 2010 is important because it means Mr. Franken was serving in the Senate at the time of the alleged incident, which begs the question, should he resign? Joining us now for a debate are 2 Democrats. From Washington, former Hillary Clinton advisor Richard Goodstein, and from Atlanta, Robin Biro, a Democratic strategist that worked on President Obama's 2008 campaign. All right, Richard, let's start with you. Second woman, I guess, squeezed her tush or something. We're just joking that we've gone from Minnesota State Fair, corn dogs to horn dogs. Such an easy joke. But what do you think at this point?
Look, when those horrible allegations about Roy Moore came out, childhood predation, the response from most Republicans was, if true, okay? Well, how are you going to prove whether what this woman's saying is true? I mean, and the difference is, even as to Leanne Tweeden, Al Franken was apologetic. She accepted it. You know, when it was Roy Moore, he said he's going to sue these people. Donald Trump, accused of putting his hands and fingers places we can't talk about, he said he's going to sue them. So I don't think that until we come up with some sense of proportion, the notion of Al Franken resigning over this, frankly, seems silly.
Robin, your take.
I honestly do think that he needs to resign. Last week, I was very proud of him for how he handled it when he asked for the investigation and he apologized, and the young lady accepted the apology. But what I heard today just was very gross to me, because he said that if she felt disrespected, that he felt bad about that. To me, that sounds like the language of somebody who may have actually done this so many times that it's normalized, like he almost can't remember doing it or not. And I think that he himself knows, and if he did do this, in fact, he really does need to resign, because we should have a zero tolerance policy for this, just like we do in the military for sexual assault. I will say that I'm a veteran, so I come from that community where there is no tolerance for this type of behavior, and that we should expect that from our congressmen.
You're being very modest, Robin, because not only are you a veteran, that you're a former Army Ranger, and
thank you.
Yeah, we hold, and thank you so much for your service. We hold our military in such high esteem, and every organization has had this problem. And Richard, I think about this, and I might actually agree with you that I don't think he should resign. And here's why. I think the voters are the ones who should decide this in the next election cycle. They elected him. He came from the entertainment world. He came from Saturday Night Live. I mean, I've known and had good friends who worked on Saturday Night Live. That's a wild deal over there. I mean, that's a wild arena, and there's a lot of stuff that happens backstage, offstage, people hooking up. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's the entertainment world. But they kind of knew what they were getting with Al Franken. Not saying they knew he was doing the groping pictures, but they elected him. Let them unelect him. And I just... he apologized for the first. I don't personally like Al Franken. He's never been particularly nice to me. Yeah. We don't agree, but I find him personally, when I've debated him in the past, very, very nasty. By the same token, I would actually don't think he should resign. Wow. And I think the voters should decide Alabama. I think the voters should decide Minnesota. I think the voters, ultimately reelected, they elected Bill Clinton in 1996, and they seem to forgive Bill Clinton after.
And elected Donald Trump.
Right?
I mean, sorry, if you had to rank order all the abuses, Al Franken would be pretty. He denies them. Okay, how many people, even in this audience, do you think accept those denials when he bragged about doing the exact same thing? Franken, when he bragged about doing the exact same thing
Billy Bush
on the Access Hollywood tape. Look, the fact of the matter is that there needs to be some reckoning about objectifying women. I guarantee you, if you and everybody that you know in your field and in the military and in business and in the churches and so forth were asked about whether they've experienced anything like this, it would be almost universal, which is not to excuse it, but it's simply to say, so what's the right penalty? I don't think we really know yet.
Robin, when we talk about objectifying women and men, I think we've talked about this before on the show, but we as a society and the culture, the way it's developed, we objectify ourselves. I mean, and I think everybody's guilty of that. Like whether it's you're in Times Square and you look up at the billboards, you see models who are maybe 14, 15 years old. They're dressed in a very provocative way. I'm not saying that brings on sexual harassment, but objectification is everywhere. Everywhere. It's in film, it's in music, the lyrics that are most disgusting, profane that we couldn't show on screen. So if objectifying and stopping the objectification, or the pornification as I call it, is our goal, then we have a long way to go across every medium, not just regarding sexual harassment, but regarding the content we're actually producing in the entertainment industry, especially. Let you have the last word.
You better believe it. And I'm glad that we're having the discussion. Like I said, we flushed this out in the military. But Ms. Menz described a situation where where Al Franken pulled her close to him and firmly cupped her butt in front of her husband. There's just no excuse for that if that happened.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's
I don't know. It's like a diminutive complex at Al Franken. I don't know what it is, but the whole thing is just so gross. Did her husband actually see this?
I've not read that he saw it or not, but I know that when she went back to him, she said, "Oh my God, he totally just grabbed my butt." So I mean, I tend to believe.
Cold. Sorry, I'm old school. Husband should have, it wouldn't have taken much to take old Franken down there.
And the problem is, any single woman coming by could basically get a senator kicked out of office. That's the problem. If the standard of this case is,
I agree.
You allege it and they're out. I mean,
you can't disprove this or prove it. I mean, and this will. I think this isn't going to end anytime soon.
Right.
That's all I can say. We have North Korea. We have all these really important issues we have to cover. This is important, so don't write in and say it's not. But at some point, we have to say, the voters have to decide this stuff. Guys, great to see both of you. Thank you so much. And straight ahead, what's up with white people? That's the absurd topic of an upcoming event at my alma mater, Dartmouth College. Details and a debate after this. Welcome back. We just found out another breaking news sexual harassment claim now against Congressman John Conyers. He's apparently accused of using government resources to fly women in with whom he was having affairs. These stories are actually coming out during the show. They're coming out so fast and furious, so I had to update you on that. And another absolutely crazy story coming out of a university or college, and this one out of Dartmouth College. And I graduated from Dartmouth just a few years ago. On February 2nd, the college is scheduled to hold a forum called What's Up with White People? The event will feature Temple University sociologist Matt Ray, and he plans to provide a, quote, field guide for, quote, the different types of white people and how you can learn to spot them in their natural habitats. Sounds like the Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Dartmouth released a statement saying it's committed to robust debate and told Fox News that the Professor Ray does not represent the views of the college. Joining us now for reaction from LA is Tariq Nasheed, a film producer who also bills himself as an anti-racism strategist. All right, take it away, Tariq. How is this, and we don't know what exactly is going to happen in this, but you got kind of a summary.
Right.
How is this not going to foment more racial division, since it's based on, quote, whiteness?
I think that the professor should have worded it differently. Now, I do disagree with What's Up with White People as the title, because white people are not the problem. And I don't like to paint everybody with one broad brush. You have white people and you have white supremacists. And I think that it should have been entitled What's Up with White Supremacy, or How Can We Dismantle and Understand White Supremacy? So the whole thing of painting all white people with a broad brush, I definitely disagree with that. But it's a very interesting topic if we want to talk about the ins and outs and how systematic white supremacy dominates all areas of activity.
So it's your contention that white supremacy dominates all areas of activity?
Yes, ma'am. Every area of activity between human beings: labor, law, entertainment, sex, war, politics, religion.
Sports?
And that's the dominant
How about sports?
That's the domineering system. Yes.
How about
sports, absolutely.
The NFL and the NBA is dominated by white supremacists? How to explain that?
Yes, because you have white team owners who say that their teammates or their team players are inmates and slaves. Donald Sterling even referred to his players as slaves. And look at how they're being treated now. They're protesting non-justice and they're getting blacklisted from teams. So that just shows and proves that sports is even dominated ultimately by systematic white supremacy.
So what would your solution be to that? Would you think that there should be a mandatory distribution of ownership assets based on percentage, ethnicity, or race in the country, and kind of do it in a kind of fanned out panoply of proportionality?
Well, the thing is how white supremacy works. It's all about maldistributing the resources, and it's all about passing those maldistributed resources down through lineages. So we have to talk about redistributing those resources that are deserving to the people who are supposed to get it. Systematic white supremacy, it works based on deception. It works through propaganda, and that's something that we have to talk about and we have to flesh out. I want to replace the system of white supremacy with justice, because not only do we get it when it comes to resources, issues in the criminal justice system, it's a racially biased system. So all across the board, it's a conversation that we should have naturally on how we remedy and replace the system of white supremacy with justice.
Yeah, I get your point, but so my answer is the solution. So you believe it should it be a monetary payout? Should it be monetary plus land or plus business ownership? I'm just trying to get the solution straight.
And I've been on solutions for a long time, and we've been trying to figure out how do we remedy systematic white supremacy. Now, when we try to get land as black people, when we try,
I have an idea. It's called hard work.
Ma'am,
content of your character.
Are you saying that black people don't do hard work?
No,
ma'am, Laura, are you saying that black people don't do hard work?
Nice try, nice trick. I'm saying everybody.
But you just said that. You said black people don't do hard work. The reason why you have all the resources maldistributed into the dominant society is black people.
My friend, that's not at all
that is
what I
what you said, ma'am.
And straight ahead, you know it isn't. That's the game you play. And straight ahead, the good news, you will not hear anyplace else how the Trump administration is saving taxpayers some serious money, and no one puts words in my mouth. Tonight's angle is up next. The good news they're not telling you. That's the focus of tonight's angle. If you just landed here from another planet, you would think that the only news stories that matter are the alleged Trump-Russia collusion, Robert Mueller's flying subpoenas, and the growing gaggle of A-list gropers. But what you wouldn't hear much about is what is perhaps the most important story of the year. America is back. Yeah, though the media has been loath to report this fact, 2017 has been a banner year for the U.S. economy. An incredible comeback from President Obama's anemic non-recovery recovery. The Economist this week notes that blue-collar wages are rising. As unemployment tumbles, wage growth among factory workers, drivers, and builders now exceeds 4%. Theirs is growing faster than the wages of professionals and managers. And when you dig deeper, there's even better news. The trades are thriving. Some building contractors are seeing their wages grow by double digits year over year. That is great news. So why are things working so well? Well, first of all, he has a great team in place, President Trump. Guys like Wilbur Ross at Commerce, Steve Mnuchin at Treasury, and what Axios is calling a rising star in the administration in Bob Lighthizer, the president's U.S. trade representative. What he does, and does it really well, is he advances President Trump's America First vision in global trade dealing. So you know what I say? With Lighthizer in charge, look out Beijing, look out South Korea, watch it Mexico, and any other country that is gaming the deals that we negotiated in good faith. Lighthizer, remember this exclusive interview he gave us, said this about finally establishing an equal playing field.
We should be in a position where we defend ourselves with the same amount of vigor, and I think that this president will do that. But that is a genuine threat. It's a combination of massive subsidies, of closed markets, and a focus on technology transfer.
Now, his policies and this pro-American posture is already benefiting American manufacturing and the American worker. You already know that the stock market is experiencing record growth. But did you know that U.S. housing and industrial production are also up? Things are rebounding so robustly that the Federal Reserve Bank in New York is projecting a 3.8% rise in the gross domestic product. That's up a week ago, just from a week ago. And if that projection holds, this will be the best quarter for the U.S. economy in 3 years. Now, do you remember when people were laughing when Trump said this?
We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning.
Now, who's laughing at him now? I don't get tired of winning, by the way. Winning is fun. And just to show that this is a president who knows how to keep his own house in order, on Friday, the Trump administration released their annual report on White House personnel. There are 110 fewer employees working for President Trump than work for Obama. You know what that saves taxpayers? That might be a drop in the bucket with the overall budget, but it saves taxpayers $5.1 million annually. I'll take that savings. And an Ingraham angle fun fact: Melania Trump has 4 staffers compared to Michelle Obama's meager 24. And did you know that the president has donated his entire $400,000 salary to the Department of the Interior? And that money is going to be used to pay for construction and repairs to our military cemeteries. I love that. So while others continue to parrot these conspiracy theories and cover issues that mean not that much to the daily lives of most Americans, you should know that things are getting demonstratively better in big ways and in small. And it is shameful and it is biased that these presidential accomplishments get so little coverage. But I'll tell you something. Here in the Ingraham angle, we're going to fix that. We all have a little more to be thankful for this year, which should be reported honestly and celebrated. And that's the angle. Do not go anywhere. We're back just a moment. Before we go, a quick reminder, check out my new book, Billionaire at the Barricades. There it is, The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump. We had a great book signing at the Reagan Library Friday night. A major focus of my book is how the U.S. has gotten absolutely hammered in recent decades on trade. And we're going to look at how President Trump is brushing off the Chinese charm offensive. President Xi's pageantry didn't get him very far. And how we're going to take a harder line against Beijing. A lot of big issues in play. Be sure to DVR us. Stay tuned. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Up next, Ms. Shannon Bream.